Alright, so how's it going? My battery died, so when we left off, I was talking about how we're only being told about the Native American that looks European or it looks Oriental, but we're not being told about the Native Americans that look like us because they don't want you to know that you're Native American. So this was a Native American city right here in this drawing, and how the Europeans were so surprised and how sophisticated it was. But some of you might say, man, you tripping. I don't believe you. I don't believe me as an African American, as a Negro, as an Afro Mexican. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Alright, what is this then? What is that? Huh? Page 147 of the same book. Huh? What does it say? Surviving Indians. These are talking about the Aztecs. Surviving Indians were left without woods, water, or any way of making a living off of the land. In America, every time we go to war, what do we do? Like in Vietnam, what do? Korea. We destroy the crops, we destroy the land so they cannot feed themselves. What's happened in Hawaii, the most agriculture-rich land in the world, can barely grow shit now. All we grow is GMO seeds and pineapple. In the United States, General U.S. Grant announced to investors that 7 million Aztecs are waiting to build railroads. Let me repeat that. In the United States, General U.S. Grant, that's before he was a president, announced to investors that 7 million Aztecs are waiting to build railroads. He dispatched this to the Rockefellers, the Aldridges, the Goulds, the Harrimans, the Guggenheims, and McCormicks. Look at that. That's all the rich families. They quickly seized the opportunity to buy cheap land and hire dirt cheap labor to operate rail and mine concessions. The Creole scientificals, acting as middlemen and legal advisors, amassed quick fortunes through large legal fees, stock manipulations, kickbacks, payoffs, and such subtle trickery as selling arms and ammunition to the Indian rebels that the government was officially exterminating. Isn't that the same thing that is done today? I'm telling you that those sayings, like, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. These sayings are not just sayings, they're truth. You need to learn your history. Though millions vanished into the pockets of the scientificals, little of the wealth trickled down. Practically nothing was spent on schooling or education. Real wages were reduced to less than they had been a century earlier under the Spaniards. What I want to point out is it says that 7 million Aztecs were waiting to build the railroad. What this book and what history tells you is that the Aztec and the Mayan were Negroid races, was a descent from Israel, an Asiatic type of Negro where they had Afro hair and full beards and Asiatic eyes. The noses are big, but not as big as their African counterparts. Those are Aztecs. What this is saying, what we've learned through history is that the railroads were built by Negroes or Africans. And we learned that the railroads were built by Asians. What this is telling you is that the railroads were actually built by Asiatic Negros of the Aztec kind. If you do research, there was less than 1,000 Chinese or Asians throughout the whole railroad building, but most of them were shopkeepers. So that's not even legit. So you gotta know, it says Aztec 7 million. You know how much that is? That's a lot. 7 million of you guys were Aztec Indians, and the descendants of them might be you. And you think you're African on a slave ship when you are the Mayans and the Aztecs, or the Pawnee Indians, or the Anasazi. You know what I mean? Some of these are the same. They like to just throw around names. The Mississippians. Come on now. The Floridians. So that proves that this is all about you. All about us, all about all of us Native Americans. Not just the ones we see every day. Right. Look at this brother. Come on. Come on. Come on. I just see my friend like that today. Crazy. Look at these. Come on. Come on, come on. Am I just tripping? The Yamasee War. Huh? This is the Gual War. These were the chiefdoms. And then when they were getting beaten by war, they end up going to different things like the Yamasee and then the Seminole. But we never stopped fighting. So they figured if we tell them they're from Africa, maybe they won't fight for their land. And they'll have to pay taxes, and then they'll be known as immigrants, and then they'll be subject to our laws and penalties. And then they'll have to come into our commercial atmosphere when they're farmers and hunters. They don't need the money. But that's what they do, man. They take away your water source and your food. So let's get on. We're gonna go into Hawaii and see what that happened everywhere. It happened in Hawaii too. Look how in Hawaii there's a lot of gay people. What happened was the University of Hawaii was one of the main places where they researched the atrazine and other chemicals that turn you gay. They was researching on frogs. Go look it up. So, and they mess with our food. A lot of our food. We used to eat really good on vegetables, fruits, all fish, really, 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 really good stuff. And what they did was they took away our diet and they made us eat canned food. So I grew up eating canned food, man, most of the time. And it was normal. And it was cheap. And we was in the hood. So that was what you had to do. But it was all good. It seemed different to me, but as I grew up, I learned how bad it was for me and why we had all these diseases, and why our neighborhoods were plagued with all these diseases and viruses and all this diabetes and obesity, you know. And then, you know, they harm you in every which way possible. But this guy right here, he knows a lot of knowledge and he's a dancer. But he's been affected by the atrazine, but nevertheless, he has a lot of great information. And he'll show you a little bit about the history of Hawaii and the hula. And how they banned our language and how they banned everything. They even destroyed our temples because it matched the ones in America. And they didn't want us to know that we had relation to the Native American Indians in America.
don't know if people know that we can't dance. I don't know if they notice that if there's a hula dance, if there's words. We can't dance without narrative. The language is how we communicate to our universe. People think hula is choreography. Hula is first a language that has a choreographical piece to it. When the Hawaiian language was the primary language, and that when at the time when everybody coming to Hawaii had to learn to speak Hawaiian, when the missionaries first came to Hawaii in 1820, and when the whalers came, they actually had to learn Hawaiian. The hula was very, very simple, because the essence was not in the dancer, the essence was in the language, was in the chanter. The dancer just amplified what the narrative said. So in the old days, the dances are very, very similar. Sometimes just claps like this. Yeah? And there'll be this really rich chanting that speaks of how we entered into the world. And where we're going to move, where we come from and where we're going to go. And then even the dances that were done in the temple, sometimes it was just this one motion for the whole 20 minutes of dancing. No other motion. Very ritualistic, because people they understood the language. Because the system changed and we were occupied, and then we became a territory, and then eventually it became a state, the Hawaiian language was illegal to be used in a public domain. People still used it at home. Through all of that negative impact that political occupation puts on indigenous people, one of the first things that they do to disconnect the people from their origin is to replace the language. So, whereas most of Hawaii did replace the language, hula was one place where the language was not replaced. No matter what was happening in the upper crust of our society, the underpinning, and at least as it relates to the hula community, was still very, very strong. Now, as the society was falling away, immigrants coming in and foreigners coming in, and our lifestyle shifted as we married into these races. The hula people began to take on more
married into their races, and it changed
They became the historians, because in the chant, in the language was all the history. In the language of hula were all the genealogy, all the sacred places, the inventory. Now we shift to about 1970s, 1980s, where the language was living through hula. It didn't mean that we were speaking that language in the streets. We're dancing the language, and some of our instruction came through the language, but if we were illiterate outside of that, when the audience could not understand the language anymore, the language of the heart, what did hula do? Was hula took on that non-literacy, in that the choreographical form became the language. So the dancer is what engaged the audience, and the more dynamic and flamboyant you were on the stage, the more tricks and twists you did, the audience just roared. So not the chanter anymore, but the attention went now to the dancer. In the 80s, when I began going to college, they were saying there were like only 2,000 native speakers left. And so they started this whole native language program. But the people that did not, the communities that came in and just entered into the Hawaiian language and did not have a cultural foundation, meaning, you know, in the traditional practices such as farming or fishing or weaving or hula, if they didn't come from those foundations, then everything became very literal. It was not about interpretation, because you were schooled in translation, coupled with an authentic hula experience made a perfect marriage. Hula is really, in particular, is the language of emotion. It's the language of metaphor. We descend, it's the language of myth. And myth, the language of myth has, you know, they rely on metaphor and pun and ritual patterns to communicate. Allocate, not just words. So hula really was the glue that kept a lot of people together. Even in academia, some of our first scholars that entered into academia did have very strong hula foundations. But now that we have large amounts of native speakers, the simplicity of the dance is now entering back on stage because people are more literate. And now what's moving us is now the chanter, because we understand the language.
Alright, so that was a cool video, but you see now, if you look at them, you see different types of faces, eh? So what happened was they tried to kill us with bioweapons. Took out over 1 million of us. Took out over 1 million Hawaiians. But there still was many left. So what they did was, the Hawaiians were one of the best farmers. So they came up with a lie and said that Hawaiians couldn't farm, or they needed help farming, it wasn't enough. And they issued to Congress or to the Senate a bill to bring immigrants from China, from Philippines, from Korea, from Puerto Rico, from all these places. And what happened was, a lot of these, there was restrictions. You couldn't have a wife or kids if you wanted to come, so it was males. So all these males came, and they ended up taking wives, local wives. So they took Hawaiian wives, and then this is what you see now, some of the kids. So the only ones that look like the Hawaiians that originally was here are the father seeds. So you see those are the Afro, dark one look Negroid. But see, a lot of these have different father seeds. So that's why you see the many different faces. A lot of the more native people, you don't really see them on TV and stuff. They're usually like living in the countries or living the life they've been living for thousands of years. See, me, I have Afro hair and stuff because my father was a Native American. Is a Native American, but he passed away. So I look just like him. He had Afro, full beard. So that's why I look like this. But but everybody calls me Hawaiian. But I mean, I try to explain to them that I got a lot of Hawaiian blood, but you are your father's seed. But that's why I look like a Hawaiian, is because my father's Native American tribe is related to the Hawaiian tribes. I believe, because they have a similar look, like the kids of Shem, Yaakov's children. So if you look right here, this is the last king of Hawaii. So if you look, see how he looks. So he has all the phenotypes, super Afro curly hair and a full beard. So that was the last king of Hawaii. And this is, so what happened was in Hawaii and all over the United States, Native people are fighting for their land. So like the Apache, you lost their land, their mountain, that was their origin point. Just like on Hawaii, the Mauna Kea, that's their origin point, supposedly, and that's where they've taken and made it a commercial business for satellites, making billions and billions of dollars and pouring nothing back into the state. These are religious sites for these culture, religious sites for these Native Hawaiians, and they just take them. They don't care. So, and they, you know, if you want to research certain stuff in the sky, you don't want to do it on this side. You know, some things are better on certain parts of the globe. So you get into that later. It's all about money. I'm gonna show you how they in Congress they took the Apache land. On Hawaii they're taking all the land. See over here, they was told they could make one satellite when they wasn't really supposed to do anything, but they ended up paying off the right people, and they got squeezed in for one. They said that's it, one. Now we up to 16, and that's one mountain. They trying to get every mountain.
If you had the people for the National Science Foundation and the University of Hawaii in front of you, what would you tell them about their proposal?
Well, I've told them before many times that it shouldn't happen. It's an insult on our culture. It's a total insult, not only on our culture, but people that come here. People come to live and to get the alveons of the Aina, the land, and cannot receive this because of this intrusion that when they go up to Haleakala, you can see all the islands except Kauai from Haleakala on a clear day, and you can relate. You can look back on all the legends of how Pele erupted, of how the kings and queens would come up. Haleakala at one time was kept only for Kahuna Puli, the top kahuna, the teachers, the preachers that could teach their art. And we lived for thousands of years without the help of any medical or any scientific information, and we survived on this land.
Do you feel that what they're doing up there, or what they propose to do up there, will be an extension of cultural genocide to the Hawaiian people?
Well, it's not will be, it is cultural genocide. Like I said, it's a cumulative effect that they have there. Every telescope, every building they build up there, it adds to the trash that is up there, and it's trash. It's white buildings that cannot be painted any other color. It has to be white. And and who's really learning from? Is the Hawaiian children benefiting from this? No, it's scientists all around the world.
How is your feeling about this? Do you think that if they press on with this, there'll be demonstrations and there'll be people just like blocking the roads up there, or what direction do you think will go?
You know, I have several strong convictions. One of them that we gotta do something like that. We gotta legally protest the traffic, the widening of the road. Protest, I mean, by having pickets. And then on the other hand, on top of that, we gotta make sure if this thing is happening, that all the cultural sensitive things are protected and followed. How to do that, that's the question. You know,
Is that possible, though, that they could develop up there and still respect the Hawaiian tradition?
no, not really. Because it's our hands are tied. It's a done deal. And so all what you have to do is see that they maintain their spirituality that we have. And it's a very confusing thing. How do you do it? You know, if you help them to make sure that they follow, are you selling out? You know, and if you don't, then are you you know, abandoning the cultural essence of what the mountain is all about?
How have you reconciled?
I don't know. In my heart, I haven't yet. It's something that I haven't reconciled. It's a very ticklish situation because I set up all the criteria for a cultural monitoring, for preservation of cultural sites, of what people should do while they work up there. And I'm concerned as to who's going to bring forth or who's going to be the watchdog. You know, is it somebody that's going to be siding with them, letting them slide by? You know, and that's my, you know, right now I'm very, very